Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. Today is the National Day of Prayer at the White House. President Trump signs an executive order to establish a Religious Liberty Commission. President Trump's top national security advisor and his deputy are expected to step down, marking the first big shakeup of his inner circle. It may be tied to the signal chat leak that rocked the Pentagon. We have the reaction from Capitol Hill. The White House gives more information about yesterday's minerals deal with Ukraine. Officials are now explaining the agreement in more detail. A judge rules against President Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act. We talk about that and everything else the president has done so far on the border and immigration with a former ICE deputy director. Former Vice President Kamala Harris yesterday called on Americans to stand together against President Trump. This was her first major speech since losing the election. And the Take It Down Act has been approved by Congress and now heads to the president's desk for signing. We talked to an expert about what this means for the fight against non-consensual explicit imagery.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Donald Trump's national security advisor Mike Waltz and his deputy Alex Wong will be leaving their posts. This is according to multiple reports citing anonymous administration officials. Now, this marks the first big shakeup of Trump's inner circle since he took office in January. Waltz is 51-year-old former Republican lawmaker from Florida. He faced criticism when in March he was caught up in a signal chat leak which involved top Trump national security aides. Now, it was not immediately clear who would take over for Waltz. A senior White House official did not confirm or deny a report in comments to the Epoch Times. The official advised to pay attention to an announcement from President Donald Trump later in the day. Here are some reactions from Capitol Hill.
This administration, we're cracking down on terrorists. We're securing our border. We're putting lethality in our military first. If Mike's leaving, that's the president's decision, and we support that.
I think he is the first of a number who will go if we're fortunate, because this national security establishment is an abject failure, beginning with Hegseth. My hope is that Trump is not scapegoating Waltz and that he identifies where the weaknesses really are with the Secretary of Defense and other members of this security establishment. The Secretary of Defense should be fired and should have been fired before Mr. Waltz. It's the Secretary of Defense who bears responsibility for the gaping errors, the mistakes.
Well, it's long overdue. I mean, he's the guy who started the unclassified text chain when there were classified channels available. It's his responsibility, but I also think Pete Hegseth needs to be fired as well, after all. I think the president is getting rid of Mike Waltz as protecting Hegseth, and I think what it's going to do is continue the upheavals that are continuing to occur within the Pentagon right now, the DOD. We're hearing from people are scared to do their jobs. People are concerned to share classified information. They don't trust that the Secretary of Defense knows how to manage classified information, and I think they're trying to get rid of this issue, but it is one of national security importance.
The White House today giving more information about a minerals deal with Ukraine. Washington and Kyiv signed the agreement last night. Here are those details.
We secured a historic agreement to establish the United States-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund.
The White House on Thursday giving more details about a Ukraine minerals deal. President Trump previously said he wants to use Ukraine's rare earth minerals for the aid the U.S. is sending Ukraine.
Is meant to pay back the United States, this is the key point, for the hundreds of billions of dollars that our taxpayers have spent subsidizing the war in Ukraine. So it is repayment to the United States, and that's one of the most important points to understand about it.
The deal was signed as the Trump administration was celebrating its first 100 days in office. The press secretary says the agreement proves that Trump is serious about wanting to help Ukraine, as he said on the campaign trail.
This partnership represents the United States taking an economic stake in securing a free, peaceful, and sovereign future for Ukraine.
She added that the agreement will establish a joint fund which will receive 50% of royalties, license fees, and other similar payments from natural resource projects in Ukraine. Rare earths are key ingredients for making various important things. They're needed for everyday items such as glass and light, but also to make cars, phones, and even military weapons such as tanks and fighter jets.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the U.S. is likely to re-implement purchase agreements with China that were established in the first Trump administration. He is referring here to the Phase 1 trade deal that was signed in January of 2020. China agreed to purchase $200 billion more in U.S. exports in exchange for tariff reductions. Bessent said the U.S. is committed to having China honor the previous agreement and that a disruption in Chinese manufacturing orders that occur around the holidays would really hurt China. Bessent also said he had productive trade talks with Indonesia, but that he is not yet speaking with the European Union. President Trump yesterday urged patience and trust in his tariff and trade policies. Speaking via phone at a News Nation town hall, Trump said that rising prices and economic uncertainty reflect a necessary transition period. Trump said the U.S. has been ripped off by China, which is why he set a high tariff. He also discussed India, South Korea, and Japan, saying he has potential trade deals going, but that there is no hurry. The president said he is confident he could make the case for his trade policy to the American people. The News Nation event marked Trump's first 100 days in office and featured anchors Chris Cuomo, Bill O'Reilly, and Stephen A. Smith. The discussion centered heavily around the tariffs that Trump recently set. Former Vice President Kamala Harris yesterday called on Americans to stand together against President Trump. Harris said the U.S. is facing what she called the greatest man-made economic crisis in modern presidential history.
We all know President Trump and his administration and their allies are counting on the notion that fear can be contagious. They are counting on the notion that if they make some people afraid, it will have a chilling effect on others.
Harris made the remarks in her biggest speech since leaving office. The event hosted by Emerge America marked something of a political re-emergence for the former presidential hopeful since losing the election last year. Harris advocated for open opposition to Trump, urging her allies to speak out loudly. She also praised Senators Cory Booker, Bernie Sanders, and activists for moral clarity and courage. She warned of a looming constitutional crisis if Congress or the courts, quote, fail to do their part. An attempt in the Senate to cancel President Trump's tariffs on most countries has failed. The measure was rejected in a 49-49 tie vote. Trump had already suspended most reciprocal tariffs for 90 days except for China, but left in place a 10% tariff that the resolution aimed to undo. The effort had backing from Democrats and Republican Senator Rand Paul. The White House said Trump would veto the measure, arguing it would weaken the administration's efforts to counter what it called unusual and extraordinary threats to national security and economic stability. Officials cited the country's large and persistent goods trade deficit. Separately, late yesterday, the Senate also voted 50-49 to block a Democratic attempt to revisit the tariff resolution next week, with Vice President J.D. Vance casting the tie-breaking vote. And the Take It Down Act has been overwhelmingly passed by Congress. The bill is now on its way to the president's desk for signing. Now, it gained bipartisan support as well as the backing of First Lady Melania Trump, and it aims to combat non-consensual explicit imagery online. Joining us now to discuss this is Eleanor Gaetan, Director of Public Policy for the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. Eleanor, thank you so much for being here today. Tell us more about this. What is this act? What is it trying to solve?
Very important legislation. The National Center on Sexual Exploitation, where I work, is thrilled for the passage of this bill. It requires online platforms to remove non-consensual, sexually explicit material within 48 hours of a victim notifying the platform. And then it criminalizes the uploading of this material. It is a devastating experience for a victim to have this kind of intimate imagery posted, and then it becomes impossible to get it down. So if I posted 2 minutes of a Disney film like Beauty and the Beast, it would immediately come down because it's a copyright violation. But this sexually explicit material was circulating infinite. It was becoming very hard to remove it, even when our law center would make multiple requests that this material be removed, and yet it be circulating infinitely all over the world, and very devastating to the lives of those who had that experience.
So, Eleanor, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, it uses this term image-based sexual abuse. Break that down, because that's a pretty broad term.
Right. Image-based sexual abuse means that sexually explicit material is circulating online. It can be AI-generated material, or it can be actual photos and images. But it is used to harass and humiliate those who are depicted in the material. In some states, it's called revenge pornography. What we have found, it's very often, though, just money that is being made off the circulation of these images. And so it's not revenge so much as a really perverse desire to make money off of pornography.
And this isn't just happening to regular everyday people, right, Eleanor? We've seen celebrities like Taylor Swift being targeted by these things as well. And I think this points to a growing issue, especially, as you mentioned, their AI. It's becoming more accessible to the general public, and it's becoming a bigger issue, I think.
Absolutely right. It's amazing this bill passed so fast. It was proposed by Senator Cruz and Senator Klobuchar, a Democrat and Republican combination, a year ago. And it almost passed last year in 2024. The First Lady's involvement, Melania Trump, came to Capitol Hill to be briefed by victims on this legislation in March. And here it is, already passed 409-2 in the House. That is unheard of consensus around this legislation. So as soon as Congress was really notified and the First Lady made her unusual journey to the Hill to learn more about it, it really became a great consensus legislation for everybody to get behind.
Eleanor, have you spoken to anyone who's been personally victimized by this? What are they feeling when they're hearing that this is going to be passed?
Yes, absolutely. The victims' stories were crucial to getting it passed. You know, folks would become scared to leave their houses because they were afraid someone they ran into had seen the material. They lost jobs because they became so emotionally upset. PTSD became part of their lives because they were triggered constantly over the prospect that someone in their life had seen these images. And people lose jobs over it. People lose relationships over it. So yes, it has a terrible impact on folks' lives.
Absolutely, especially for those young teenagers and preteen girls. It's absolutely horrendous, the things that are happening. Eleanor, this bill, is it watertight? Is there more that still needs to be done?
It's everything in the U.S. system. It'll be tested. Cases will be brought. And hopefully the fact that Congress passed the legislation so unanimously will also matter in judges' decisions. They won't easily be distracted by big techs generally claiming that the Communications Decency Act, Section 230, protects them from any responsibility. This is a corporate accountability bill as much as a justice for victims bill.
So I have a question here. For these young girls out there, or really anyone could be a victim of these types of crimes, what can they do to avoid becoming targeted? Never
respond to a request for nudes. I mean, it's sort of common sense, but also young people have not always the best judgment. We know a case of a 13-year-old. She'd come from a farm. She had been homeschooled. She enters high school, junior high for the first time, and her crush asked her to send a picture of her undressed. And she didn't know better. And then she sent that one picture, was posted to Pornhub. Next thing you know, she's dropping out of school. She runs away from home. She's so shamed. She didn't know how to behave. She ends up addicted to drugs. It's a terrible story, and it was documented by the New York Times. These events have horrible ramifications for a life, especially a young person who didn't know better. So you've got to be careful of your own imagery. Protect your own image, your own likeness.
Absolutely. So before we go here, Eleanor, what future actions do you hope to see from the government, whether it be in preventing these crimes or educating people?
Probably we need public service announcements saying if this happens to you, you have recourse. There's something you can do. And these digital platforms are required to create help desks that are where a human is reached. Sometimes we talk to victims who have no idea how to reach that digital platform where the material is circulating. So this will require some corporate responsibility to put together help desks, and you just have to alert ASAP that this non-consensual material is circulating.
A very important act. Eleanor Gayatan, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up next, a judge says President Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act is unlawful. We'll talk about all things to do with border security and illegal immigration with a former ICE deputy director after this break.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50 enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. You won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
911, where's your emergency?
I get shot in my back, friend.
Thanks for staying with us. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced the results of the largest immigration operation in state history. Now, he held a press conference a while ago with Immigration and Customs Enforcement Deputy Director Madison Sheehan. Take a listen.
There's been a lot of great enforcement efforts leading up to Operation Tidal Wave, but this has been the first of its kind throughout the United States. This is the largest immigration enforcement operation that we've seen in quite some time throughout the entire country.
1,100 arrests that we've been able to highlight over this last week, truly a historic marker.
You see some of these folks who have huge problems in their background, with their conduct, and really put our communities at risk. It's important that the law is enforced. It's important that those people are taken care of. But what it also does is sends the message going forward, the United States of America is serious about enforcing its immigration laws.
The 6-day operation, known as Tidal Wave, is the first coordinated operation between ICE and local law enforcement. Now, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said at a press conference on Monday that the move is a preview of what's to come in this country to, quote, get criminal illegal aliens off our streets. Governor Ron DeSantis previously said the operation was an example of significant gains in immigration enforcement and deportation. And a federal judge has limited the Trump administration's ability to transfer illegal immigrants held at Guantanamo Bay to third countries. The ruling states the migrants must first be allowed to raise claims of potential persecution or torture. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that and other key immigration case updates.
The case centers on a Trump administration policy that, according to plaintiffs, allows deportation of non-citizens to countries other than their own without notice or a chance to object. The 4 plaintiffs, originally from Cuba, Honduras, Ecuador, and Guatemala, had been granted protection from deportation to their home countries. They say the Department of Homeland Security began using Guantanamo as a transfer point to bypass legal safeguards. The Department of Justice argues the executive branch has broad discretion over immigration and foreign affairs. An appeal is underway. Turning to Wisconsin, more information is emerging about an illegal immigrant who a judge allegedly helped evade immigration authorities. Eduardo Flores Ruiz is a 30-year-old illegal immigrant from Mexico, now held in a county jail. Previously deported in 2013, Flores Ruiz returned to the U.S. and now faces 3 misdemeanor battery charges in Milwaukee. Flores Ruiz is accused of striking a man about 30 times on his body and face during an argument about loud music. The man's girlfriend says Flores Ruiz also struck her multiple times in the head with his fist. Federal authorities say Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan tried to help Flores Ruiz evade ICE arrest during a court appearance. He was later apprehended after a brief chase. And in another immigration case, a federal judge has ordered the Trump administration to resume reporting efforts to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The Department of Homeland Security has suggested in court filings that if returned, the alleged MS-13 gang member would be detained and deported again, either to a third country or back to El Salvador. This after the U.S. government stripped his protected status, which had blocked his deportation to his home country. Newly uncovered court records show Kilmar Abrego Garcia was accused by his wife of violent abuse and once allegedly claimed he could kill her and face no consequences. In protective order filings from 2020 and 2021, Jennifer Vasquez Sura detailed years of alleged threats, assaults, and intimidation. Salvadoran authorities recently confirmed that Abrego Garcia is no longer being held at the maximum security terrorism confinement center. He is being held at another facility. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Now, at the cabinet meeting yesterday, Trump also said he has not spoken with El Salvador's president about returning Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also weighed in. He said he would not disclose any details about Abrego Garcia's case or discussions with El Salvador, not even to the courts. And Uzbekistan has agreed to pay for the deportation of 131 illegal immigrants from the U.S. The immigrants are from Uzbekistan and neighboring Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem commended the Uzbek president for the offer. It's the latest deal the Trump administration has made with a foreign government over deportations after Colombia and El Salvador. So now let's stay on the topic of the border crisis and illegal immigration. We're now joined in studio by John Torres, president of Security and Technology Consulting at Guidepost Solutions, former special agent in charge at Homeland Security Investigations, and former acting director and deputy director with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. John, so great to have you in studio. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we were just talking before we came on. These 100 days, I mean, it's been a whirlwind. Tell us your reaction.
Yeah, as I mentioned, this is really like next level stuff. I mean, I knew it was going to be busy on Inauguration Day when he signed so many executive orders. But in essence, looking back at it now, that was really a slow day compared to everything that you see taking place in the last 100 days, including shutting down the southwest border almost within a month. It's amazing.
I know, it's absolutely incredible. I want to talk about, because you, of course, have extensive experience with ICE. So we saw by day 50, only halfway through the 100 days, there had been already over 32,000 at-large arrests. So these weren't even arrests in prisons. How do you read those numbers?
So I look at that as being really phenomenal hard work by the men and women of ICE and Customs and Border Protection, especially the Border Patrol. But you look at where the numbers have slowed down on the southwest border, most of those arrests are being made by ICE agents because the cross flow of the border is slowed down to almost nothing now. And also knowing, when you look at the past 4 years, that under the Biden administration, they really dismantled the infrastructure to support those types of arrests, to shut down the transportation and the detention networks. So without having that back in place, that takes a while to stand that back up, to recreate it. And so what this administration has done is they're working very closely with state and local law enforcement and also using National Guard and the military to help with that infrastructure so they can go out and make these arrests immediately.
So this type of a pacing, is this something you've ever experienced before?
Never. In my 27 years in law enforcement, I've never seen something like this happen so quickly. And it's pretty impressive because I've had conversations with people that say usually it takes an administration nearly a year to get their footing. It takes them longer to get their people in place, to get them confirmed by Congress, and then to really make changes to policy and implement what they want to do. And in this case, they're doing it all in 100 days.
So John, at the border, we saw there's around 9,000 troops there now. We saw the president, he ordered the deployment of these troops. He ordered the deployment of strikers. And then we also saw he ordered the occupation of the Roosevelt Reservation. What's the significance of letting these troops go there and acting almost as like a second layer of defense in addition to that border wall?
Well, if you remember back to Inauguration Day, he said that this was really an invasion. He signed an executive order saying that this was an invasion of illegal immigrants crossing the border. And so in effect, if this is truly an invasion and a national emergency, he's using all the resources that he has, including military and National Guard. In the past, when we've used the National Guard to support ICE, it's been to help with infrastructure like providing security or helping to build fences, walls, etc. In this case, you're seeing them much more active.
So is there anything that has surprised you so far by the administration?
At this point, nothing surprises me anymore.
Really?
I mean, in the beginning, I thought, well, that's interesting with some of the different avenues that they were pursuing, by creating agreements with El Salvador, for example, to get them to take third country nationals. In the past, we've talked about doing that in past administrations, never really followed through on that. And so you would end up with certain countries, you couldn't deport people to certain countries because they wouldn't take them back. And under law and regulation, ICE can only detain people for the purposes of deportation. And if you can't deport them, you can't detain them, unless it's a severe national security or public safety threat. And in that case, it has to go all the way to the director to get approval to keep them in custody. And that's rare. And so in effect, if you can't deport someone to Venezuela, for example, you have to release them back into the community.
So give us more of an inside look into ICE here. What goes on in these operations? What kind of challenges do these operations face? And do you think the current administration is doing enough to address those challenges?
They're certainly doing their best under the leadership of Border Czar Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. And so what really makes these operations much more difficult is the fact that many of them are taking place in sanctuary cities where state and locals are not cooperating. When you see that they are cooperating, like what's happened in Florida over the past couple of weeks, you can see the numbers and the accomplishments of a large-scale operation. But in cities where they don't cooperate, for example, you have people that are being released from jail with pretty significant violent criminal histories, but because they're a sanctuary city, they won't be turned over to ICE for deportation. And so they're released back in the community. Many of them are recidivists and will commit crimes like that again, which will victimize people, innocent people in the community. And so ICE has to send teams, and not one person to go arrest one person because they're much more violent, dangerous, and unpredictable. They will send an entire team into the neighborhood to go knock on that door and try to arrest that person. And then also, while they're there, if there are other people that are out of status that are illegally here in the country, they're going to take them into custody too.
Well, then what do you say, John, to those critics who say we have to keep these sanctuary city laws because it actually improves security in our cities, because then these illegal immigrants who are here, they feel safe to come and step forward and report crimes?
So in essence, what they're saying is that we're going to overlook these crimes right now so that maybe in the future they can report another crime. And I look at that as really bad public safety policy, because What do you say to the people being victimized now? What do you say to Kate Steinle 10 years ago, who was murdered by an illegal immigrant in San Francisco? Or the ones that you're seeing President Trump meet with now, or Tom Homan meeting with the angel parents of victims of illegal immigrant crime? You're basically telling them, we're going to wait on the off chance that someone may come forward and report another crime. Meanwhile, they're committing crimes right now, and you have them in custody.
Well, John, I want to get your take on this. We heard a federal judge in Texas. He just ruled that the president's use of the Alien Enemies Act is unlawful. And then we were also seeing all these alleged members of Tren de Aragua. Because of this ruling, the administration can't immediately deport them. Now, we're seeing a lot of these challenges. We keep hearing about due process. We keep hearing about, you know, the idea that things are just happening too fast. Is that a concern for you?
Yes, and I've seen that over my career where we had to face many lawsuits and temporary restraining orders that in some instances applied to one judicial district, like the Ninth Circuit, for example, but other times they apply it nationwide. And the reality is they're trying to stop the immigration enforcement. I understand when they say, well, we want to make sure they have due process, but a lot of times they are already in front of an immigration judge, maybe 2 times in front of an immigration judge, and are ordered deported and have had their day in court, but they're still asking for more. So really what I see here is that through these lawsuits, and you will see a lot more of them, they're trying to run the clock out on President Trump, as they know this is his 2nd term already, and he's going to be gone in 4 years, and they're hoping they can stall this until maybe a new administration comes in.
Well, are you hoping the administration could do something to make these laws or these actions permanent so that even when this administration is over, these rules stay in place?
And that's really going to take the cooperation of Congress. And we've seen what's happened with that. There hasn't been an Immigration Reform Act passed since 1986 under President Reagan. And they've tried over the years. It stalls. It's really such a divisive issue that I don't see anything changing permanently anytime soon.
Before we go here, John, what do you hope to see in the next 100 days from this administration?
To continue this pace of making the country safe. But if they're focusing on national security threats, they've already designated gang members as national security threats and terrorists. And so getting them off the streets is critical to making communities safer.
Well, John Torres, great having you on today. This is a very interesting and important topic, and I'm sure a lot more is going to happen in the next 4 years. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, before we go, here's some breaking news. President Donald Trump has announced that Mike Waltz has been nominated to be the next ambassador to the United Nations. We'll have more on that in just a moment. And also, Republicans sign off on new fees for electric vehicles and changes to federal workforce pensions. We'll have those details. Stay with us.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
Your lips are so divine. Your loving turns me on.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, boss. Okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
You sure?
I said I'm fine.
Since I was little, it was only like me and my parents. You think you created family out of characters? Yeah. Before would it take that, make it into a song?
Jason,
Hey, Pop.
you can talk to me.
It's been really, really hard for me.
Thanks for staying with us. President Donald Trump just posted on Truth Social that he's going to be nominating National Security Advisor Mike Waltz as U.S. Ambassador to the UN. He wrote on Truth Social, quote, "I am pleased to announce that I will be nominating Mike Waltz to be the next United States ambassador to the United Nations. From his time in uniform on the battlefield, in Congress, and as my national security advisor, Mike Waltz has worked hard to put our nation's interests first. I know he will do the same in his new role. In the interim, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as national security advisor while continuing his strong leadership at the State Department. Together, we will continue to fight tirelessly to make America and the world safe again. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Now, of course, this all comes amid those reports that Mike Waltz will be stepping down from his position, perhaps due to that Signal chat leak, although we are still waiting for official confirmation on that. We're going to move on now. Vice President J.D. Vance is visiting a steel factory in South Carolina right now, and Lee Zeldin, the Environmental Protection Agency administrator, is also there. Take a look.
And I'm going to cost you guys a lot of money if the vice president comes here and screws up and doesn't press the red button when he's supposed to. And you know what the leadership of this facility told me? They said, you know what, even if the vice president screws up a little bit and costs us some money, we're going to make so much money from Donald Trump's golden age of American manufacturing that you guys will end up ahead in the bargain. And I thought, that's not too bad. Now, a lot of you may know this is a particular meaningful stop for me as Vice President of the United States. I've actually never had a tour of a steel mill, even though my grandfather, the man who raised me, worked in the steel industry. He was, for 40 years, a welder at Armco Steel in Middletown, Ohio. Now, he was part of the Appalachian wave of migration, people who came from West Virginia, Eastern Kentucky, and East Tennessee to the rapidly growing industrial towns, which had factory jobs that promised three things for their workers: generous wages, stable hours, and a good pension. Now, in the wake of both world wars, millions of Americans traveled to towns like Middletown, Ohio, in search of the same, hoping they'd be fortunate enough to score such a role, such a good job. Now, my papaw, he was not a proud man, but he would beam when he'd talk about his work at the local Armco mill. I remember that. Driving around with Papaw, he could name the make and model of every single car made with Armco steel. I remember that as a little boy, how much pride he had in what he did. And having met a few workers here at Nucor, I hope you all feel the exact same pride in the steel you produce and in the products that come out of it. When you see bridges you drive over, or the foundations of the buildings that our families live and work in, when you see a lawnmower, a water heater, a kitchen appliance in your neighbor's homes or in your home, I hope every single one of you, you guys and you guys in front of me, feel a sense of pride, however small, because these are the products that actually make America work. These are the products that make our citizens' lives better. And I hope you feel not just pride in the work that you do, I hope you feel a little patriotic too. Because this is America's national heritage. It's making things. from Alexander Hamilton to Henry Clay, from Ford's auto workers to the steel workers here this very afternoon, America has always been a nation that builds. The Empire State Building, the Hoover Dam, the Saturn V, every single one of those great accomplishments were impossible without the might of American industry and, yes, the hard work of American steelworkers. But let's be honest, for a couple decades, though, our leaders forgot about that core part of American national identity. They decided that America would no longer be a manufacturing power. Instead, we'd let the rest of the world make the necessary things that we needed for our homes and for our families. And when a nation decides to deindustrialize, my friends, you know what else it stops using? The intermediate goods central to that manufacturing, the things like steel that you all make right here at Nucor. So we stopped making the things that we needed. We stopped making as many cars. We stopped making appliances. We stopped building new homes and buildings, so the cost of housing skyrocketed in our communities. And even this company, Nucor Steel, you know what the leadership told me just a couple of short minutes ago? That there was a West Virginia facility, a beautiful, high-tech Nucor manufacturing facility making great American steel and giving workers good jobs in the process. That steel facility, that project, sat idle for years under the Biden administration's crushing environmental regulations and environmental rules. So when our leadership decides that Americans don't want to make anything, you know what we do? We cost great businesses and great corporations like Nucor a lot of money. We cost great workers their wages, and we cost a lot of people their jobs. And that was the policy of the administration that came before us, but I'm proud that we are now 101 days into an administration that wants to invest in you, that wants to build the future with you. And when Americans see a beautiful bridge or a beautiful building, we all ought to look at it and say that was made with American hands and built with great American steel, right? And that is exactly what the Trump administration promises to do. Now, I want to say that recently, we should have learned a very hard lesson about what happens when you ship all of your industries and all the things you need to countries that don't like you. Now, I learned that lesson very personally, not with steel, but I remember a few years ago, I got 3 little kids, and as you know, sometimes little kids get sick, and one of my kids had an ear infection. I went into a pharmacy, and I said, hey, I've got a prescription here for amoxicillin, and the pharmacist told me that they didn't have any amoxicillin, a drug in some ways invented by the United States of America. We didn't have enough of it for American children. That's what happens when you lose the ability to make your own stuff. You've got parents who can't get the medicine they need for their own children. And as we learned during the COVID pandemic, remember, you know, this terrible virus comes. A lot of people are falling sick with it, and we need hospital gowns, and we need hospital masks. We need the things that are necessary to operate an American medical facility, and it turned out all of those supplies came from the very country that set the virus loose on the entire world. Remember that. Those lessons, the lesson that you can't become dependent on foreign adversary, the lesson that you've got to make your own stuff, that is the lesson that the Trump administration has put into place in the first 100 days. And I'm telling you, I bring this word straight from the President of the United States. We're so proud of every single one of you. We're so proud of what you do. We're proud of the hard work you do. We're proud of the beautiful products that we make with American steel. And we are never going to allow your job to get shipped off to a country that hates us. We want to protect your jobs, and most importantly, we want to protect the great work you do right here in South Carolina and all across the United States of America. Now, you heard, I'm sure you've heard some criticism of the president's trade policies from people who ought to know better. Because if you listen to the American media, or you listen to a lot of politicians in our own country, they seem desperate to forget the very lessons that made Donald J. Trump the 45th and 47th President of the United States of America. Now, they attack us when we implement trade policies that do a very simple thing, rebalance trade in favor of American workers and American businesses instead of foreign workers and foreign corporations. I've talked to people here today who talk about expanding facilities, building new steelmaking facilities because of the trade policies that Donald J. Trump has implemented. And I'll ask all of you, the workers and the corporate leadership assembled here today, a very simple question. Do you want to ship American jobs off to the People's Republic of China? No. Do you want to rely on foreign corporations to make the things that you need in your homes and your families need every single day? So why don't we rebuild America's middle class? Why don't we rebuild American manufacturing? And why don't we rebuild American industry just like you're doing right here? And isn't it nice to have an administration that supports you for a change? So, you see these media personalities, they're pulling their hair out. They're saying, well, you guys, you're going to make it harder to manufacture in China. Isn't that bad? No, it's good. That's exactly what we want to do. They're saying you're going to make it harder for people to bring products in from overseas and undercut the wages of American workers. Exactly. That's exactly what we want to do. They're saying you're going to make it harder for foreign corporations, but you're going to make it easier for American businesses to build great things in America. And I say that's exactly right. That's not something to be sad about. That's not something to complain about. That is something to be proud of. And thank God we've got an administration that's finally looking out for American businesses and the American workers who employ them. Ain't that right? So I'm here today, and I got to tell you, it is such a personally amazing thing for a guy who was born in Middletown, Ohio, who was raised by a 40-year welder at a steel mill, to be able to come to this beautiful facility as the Vice President of the United States. And I can't help, thank you. I can't help but pinch myself that I get to spend the day in beautiful South Carolina with you fine people, pinch myself that I'm the Vice President of the United States, and pinch myself, of course, because I know that this country is still a place of great big American dreams. But it's only going to stay that country if we fight for it, if we fight for the jobs of the people here at this facility, if we fight to make it easier to build upon it and to build great things in the United States of America. I got to be honest with you. The American dream was not built by people selling digital advertisements in Silicon Valley. The American people was built by people like you. The American dream was built by steel makers and auto workers and people who work with their hands. And I think another thing we got to do is we got to send a message, ladies and gentlemen. I think you all know this better than I do, but I learned a little bit today that you all don't just work with your hands, you work with your heads in amazing ways. This is an incredibly high-tech facility. I'm sure you all are amazed at how much you can do. You got about 1,000 workers here, and they're earning great wages and doing a great job. How much those 1,000 workers can do to build the American dream of the future. It's an amazing thing. And so I think we got to send messages to our young people that the most interesting work, the work that's going to challenge your mind but also allow you to work with your hands, is found at American steel mills right here at Nucor, Berkeley in South Carolina. I was sitting down at Seth's terminal. I thought, this guy is not a steel mill worker. He's operating a spaceship, because there's like 14 very complicated screens in front of me, and I felt like Homer Simpson. I had no idea what I was going to do. I was like, Seth, you got to get back in this chair or we're going to cause some serious problems. But what it made me realize is that technology, technology, we use this term, we think about it as the iPhones that we have in our pocket or the screen that we stare at when a lot of our knowledge workers are going to work. But technology is happening right here at a steelmaking facility in Nucor, in Berkeley, in South Carolina. That's technology of the future. The great technology of the future, I don't think it's going to be people, sitting around staring at their iPhones. The technology of the future is going to be building great things, but doing it in a new way. doing it with new, incredible facilities, with safer facilities, with people who know, again, how to use their minds but also use their hands. And I think that is the high-tech future. You know, people criticize. I get sick sometimes of the press. They say that Donald J. Trump wants to bring back the jobs of the past. And I don't think anything could be further from the truth, because I again, was raised by a man who worked at a steel mill of the past. But I guarantee if I went to that steel mill today, it's owned by Cleveland Cliffs. Sorry, that's a competitor. But they're a good company, too. We can spread the love around. But I guarantee if I went to that facility today, or when I go to this facility here in Berkeley, I don't see the steel mill jobs of the past. I see the steel mill jobs of the future. I see technology.
We're looking live at Vice President J.D. Vance speaking to workers at a steel factory in South Carolina, praising the workers as well as the importance of American steel. But we're going to move away from that for now. Republicans have signed off on fees for electric vehicles and cuts to federal employees' pay and retirement pensions. It's all part of the broader budget bill that's in the works. NTD's Melina Weiskup reports.
The Oversight Committee has advanced their portion of Republicans' big budget bill, making changes to federal workforce pay. Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer says the goal is to save around $50 billion, mainly through requiring workers to contribute more to the retirement system. Listen to Comer.
Too little is done to shrink the administrative state or make the federal bureaucracy more efficient. Federal employee retirement benefits far outpace the retirement benefits that most Americans enjoy in the private sector.
Now, through these changes, take-home pay for those federal workers will reduce, especially for those who are at the lower earning end of the income spectrum. Now, there is also another proposed change to how pensions are calculated. This is in order to save an extra $4 billion. In addition to all Democrats in opposition, there was one Republican who also opposed it. Listen in.
I do not believe that this bill represents Republican values, and I don't believe that it represents American values. I believe that making changes to pension retirement benefits in the middle of someone's employment is wrong.
This partisan bill threatens to further undermine the federal workforce by reducing the take-home pay, the benefits, and workforce protections of 2.4 million federal employees, most of whom are middle-class Americans.
Now, in a separate committee, the Transportation Committee, lawmakers advance their portion, which includes a $250 fee for electric vehicles per year and a $100 fee for hybrid vehicles every year. Now, these fees are to add to the Highway Trust Fund, which of course pays for maintenance and road repairs. Now, on the Medicaid front, we're still waiting on the details to develop here, but so far the committee has not finished their part of the markup yet. But they're discussing uprooting the way Medicaid is paid through the states, specifically the practice of how states tax healthcare providers. And then we know, of course, they're discussing work requirements. House Speaker Mike Johnson has previously vocalized support for making those new work requirements for Medicaid recipients, but ultimately we're still waiting for the details to come out on the Medicaid front, and we'll keep you updated as more develops. Back to you in the studio.
Coming up, Beijing is standing firm that it won't be first to reach out for trade talks with the U.S., but how are Chinese manufacturers faring amid this trade war? We spoke to locals in China for firsthand information. We'll have that and more when we come back.
Stay tuned to get a free month of home warranty protection. Tired of searching for contractors when your home appliances and systems break down, only to leave you stuck with a huge repair bill and shoddy repairs? Plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and appliance breakdowns could cost thousands.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington, here for Choice Home Warranty. They protect my home from expensive repairs, and they can do the same for you. No matter if it's your refrigerator, plumbing, or more than 20 other home systems and appliances, Choice Home Warranty has saved millions of homeowners a whole lot of money. For a low monthly fee, you get their nationwide network of trusted local technicians with plans that cover repairs and replacements done quickly and the right way.
I would recommend anyone who is listening to this to call Choice Home Warranty. It eliminates anxiety, frustration, and it saves you money.
Don't let an appliance or home system break the bank, leaving you stressed. Call Choice Home Warranty before that happens and get your first month free. Plus, call in the next 5 minutes and we'll give you free limited roof leak coverage. That's a $70 value, free. Just call now.
No more headaches searching for technicians. No more budget-breaking chaos. Just a peace of mind of having Choice Home Warranty at your service. I trust Choice Home Warranty with my home, and you should too.
Year after year, Choice Home Warranty is recognized as the nation's top home warranty and has thousands of 5-star reviews from real homeowners. Experience real budget protection and call Choice Home Warranty now.
Stop throwing money down the toilet chasing contractors. Call Choice Home Warranty now and save big with their special offer of your first month free and free limited roof coverage. Don't wait another minute. Call now.
Call Choice Home Warranty for your free personalized quote and to get your first month free. Call in the next 5 minutes, and as our special offer, you'll receive free limited roof coverage. That's over $100 in savings. This offer won't last long. Call now to lock in your rate and save big. Call 800-216-9114, 800-216-9114.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight.
Skylar, come here.
Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Thanks for staying with us. President Donald Trump says he hopes to make a trade deal with Beijing, adding that factories are closing all over China. His remark follows official data showing that U.S. tariffs on China are making a dent in the country's economy. China is already seeing a manufacturing decline. That's according to a report about the country's official index for activity in the sector. The number came in at 49, a 1.5% drop compared to March. This means China's manufacturing activities have slowed and are sitting at their lowest level since 2023. Chinese authorities said the drop was driven by sharp changes in the external environment. In an apparent jab at the U.S., it added there are no winners in trade wars. Official data also shows a plunge in new export orders, now at the lowest rate in 3 years. All right, up next, will California's plan to ban gas-powered cars by 2035 move forward? The House voted yesterday, or rather today, on whether to block the state's landmark policy. That and more in the next hour.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
There's cultures that have been lost, but this culture hasn't been. The artist is showing us our sense of who we are, where we came from. You look at his hat. His hat is knitted probably by a man, because a man traditionally knitted the hats. That hat tells you the story of who this person is, what his place in the culture is, the animals around him. Everything's all contained in the messages in the hat. And the tool that he's carrying over his shoulder. This is a centuries-old tool that has been able to rework the mountains. Those traditions are invaluable, and if we don't honor those traditions, then we're rootless. The artist is showing us the value of maintaining our culture and respecting our culture.
At Mathis Home, we understand that your home is a reflection of you. And during our spring style event, we have fresh new